Hello, my name is Mazie Pinkleswift, and today I'm going to read you a new story I've written called Monsieur Reveaux's Snail Hotel, and this is Chapter 1. It was a hot sunny day. Monsieur Reveaux stood outside the village hardware store. He surveyed the tower of buckets, mops and brooms, washing-up bowls, and many other useful things, all stacked up like a higgledy-piggledy mountain. He was a large man with a fine black moustache which curled up at each end, and being the best chef in the village, he was very proud to be overweight. He saw this as a sign of good living and fine dining. Monsieur Reveaux stretched his gaze to the top of the pile of wares, wondering if there was anything he needed for the new kitchen in his restaurant. Something at the very top of the pile caught his eye, and he stared, deep in thought, at the green enamel box balanced on top of all the buckets, mops and bowls. It had a sign written on it that said, "The Snail Hotel." Monsieur Reveaux was puzzled. He blinked in the afternoon sunshine. At that moment the shopkeeper came out, and seeing Monsieur Reveaux's puzzled gaze, he pulled a ladder from the side of the shop and set it up next to the tall mountain of goods. The ladder wobbled and creaked as he climbed to the top and carefully picked up the Snail Hotel. He was looking very pleased with himself. He smiled at Monsieur Reveaux. "You need one of these if you're a top chef," he cried from the top of his creaking ladder. Monsieur Reveaux could not think why on earth he would want a hotel for snails. "Some of the finest chefs in Paris own a snail hotel," said the shopkeeper. Monsieur Reveaux shook his head. "Why would a chef want a hotel for snails?" he laughed. "They are only good for the cooking pot." "Ah," said the shopkeeper, "I agree, and that is why you need one of these." He patted the roof of the little green snail hotel knowingly. He descended the ladder, propped it up against the shop wall, and beckoned Monsieur Reveaux to follow him inside. Monsieur Reveaux looked around the dimly lit shop. It was stacked from floor to ceiling, wall to wall, with every kind of household item you could imagine. There were rubber gloves and tea towels, garden forks and garden trowels, bolts and screws, tacks and glues, floor mops, door stops, mouse traps, beeswax, knives and spoons, party balloons, plant pots, door locks, hooks and pliers, strings and wires, a hammer and a saw, and oh, so much more. Monsieur Reveaux squeezed his fat body between the narrow aisles of brooms and rakes and tins of paint. The shopkeeper led him to the back of the shop and down a dark, damp corridor. He kicked the door at the end of the passage. It flew open, and the sunshine streamed in. Monsieur Reveaux stepped out into a pretty courtyard garden. There was a rickety table and 2 chairs. The shopkeeper placed the tiny green Snail Hotel carefully on the table. He pulled out a chair for Monsieur Reveaux to sit on. Then he disappeared inside, only to reappear in a flash, holding a bottle of brandy and 2 glasses. He poured them both a large measure, raised his glass, took a big gulp, and leaned across to Monsieur Reveaux with a twinkle in his eye, and in a hushed voice he said, "You will be famous for serving the most delicious, plump, juicy snails in the whole of France, of Europe, of the world." The little green Snail Hotel vibrated as his voice echoed around the small courtyard garden. Monsieur Reveaux pursed his lips. The corners of his eyes crinkled, and a large smile spread across his face. He imagined his restaurant serving the most delicious snails in the land. He would be famous. People would come from far and wide to taste his wonderful cuisine. He closed his eyes and imagined all the delicious, irresistible, tempting dishes he would prepare. Snail pâté on toast, snails fried, boiled or roast, snail risotto with pumpkin, in a stew with a dumpling, shell-on snails with garden salad, pureed snails on pan-fried mallard, spaghetti and snails with long curly tails, mashed snail with squid in a pot with a lid, And for pudding, of course, ice cream with snail sauce. Ugh. Anyway, that's chapter 1. If you want to hear more of the story, Monsieur Reveaux's Snail Hotel, you can contact me at Mazie, Mazie, Pinkleswift at yahoo.co.uk. And if you want to see some other stories I've written, you can find me on YouTube